McLintock.
Mr. Attorney General, I think the real concern of a lot of parents is they attend a school board meeting to exercise their First Amendment rights, a fight breaks out, and the next thing you know, they're being tracked down by the FBI with a rap on the door, maybe a SWAT team in the morning, because they simply happen to be there. That is a serious form of intimidation. Whether it was intended or not, that's clearly the effect it's having, and I think you need to be sensitive of that. But I want to talk about the news we received yesterday that we've seen the highest number of arrests of people illegally crossing our border in the history of our country. 1.7 million arrests this year. It is a federal crime to cross the border outside of a port of entry, is it not?
Yes, it's a misdemeanor, that's true.
Well, your job is to prosecute federal crimes. How many of you are actually prosecuted of that 1.7 million?
So the Justice Department doesn't make those arrests? Those are made by Homeland?
No, but the Justice Department is responsible for prosecuting them. How many are you prosecuting?
I don't know the answer to that, but they
A
have
lot
to be
or a little?
referred by the...
Wait a second. You know exactly how many people you're prosecuting from the riot on January 6th, but you can't even give me a ballpark guess of how many people you're prosecuting of the 1.7 million who have illegally crossed our border, committing a federal crime and doing so?
I don't have that number on the top of my head, but I'd be happy to have our staff get back to you.
Do you think that the failure to prosecute illegal border crossings might have something to do with the fact that our border is now being overwhelmed by illegal immigrants who tell reporters they wouldn't have considered making that trip under the Donald Trump administration?
I think there are a substantial number of issues driving migration towards the United States, from the pandemic.
Well, if you ask the migrants,
and the earthquakes,
if you ask the migrants, they'll tell you specifically what's driving it. They can do it now. They can get in. Gallup, and not fear prosecution from you. You know, Gallup tells us there are about 42 million people living just in Latin America and the Caribbean who intend to come to the United States if they can, based upon their polling. A lot of people come each year on temporary visas, but then they fail to leave when those visas expire, again, in violation of federal law. Do you believe that those who illegally overstay their visas should respect our laws and return to their home countries?
I think they should respect our laws. It's up to the Department of Homeland Security to make determinations about
and yet
how
the
we resolve these
administration
matters.
is proposing amnesty to most visa overstays who arrived before January of 2021, including those whose visas have yet to expire. So what you're telling us and what you're doing are two very different things. Let me go on. It's unlawful for an employer to knowingly hire an illegal alien. How many prosecutions are you pursuing under this law?
Again, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to have staff try to get back to you.
It shocks me, given the fact that this is now an historic high on illegal border crossings. You're the chief law enforcement officer of our country. You come here before this committee. You devote not a word in your spoken remarks to this issue. You devote, out of a 10-page written statement, one paragraph simply saying we need to expedite the immigration proceedings for asylum claims. I find that astonishing. Let me ask you this. Do you agree that an alien who's received proper notice of his or her immigration court hearing, who fails to appear at that hearing absent exceptional circumstances, and is ordered removed in absentia, should be removed from this country?
I'm not really familiar with exactly the circumstance you're talking about. There are rules about removal, and there are
when
rules
someone
that
is
the
ordered
Department of
deported
Homeland
by
Security
a
has
court.
established. I'm sorry.
If someone is ordered deported by a court, should they be removed?
If they're ordered deported by a court, then we have an obligation to follow the court's order.
And yet the president, on his opening day in office, instructed Customs Immigration and Customs Enforcement not to conduct such deportations.
I'm not familiar with the specific thing you're talking about. I'm sorry.
What circumstances would justify an independent prosecutor?
So we've had some history with independent prosecutors. Neither the Democrats nor the Republicans seem to like the result, regardless of who is appointed.
There have been multiple reports that Hunter Biden made enormous sums of money, and he's admitted that's because of his family ties. Now, that by itself might not be a crime, but there have also now been multiple reports that emails and other communications from Hunter Biden have indicated that his finances were intermingled with those of his father's, including a text to his daughter complaining that half of his earnings were going to his father. If that doesn't call for an independent investigation of the president, what would?
So I'm not going to comment about this investigation, but as everyone knows, there is an investigation going on in Delaware by the U.S. attorney who was appointed by the previous administration, and I can't comment on it any further than that.
That's being done under the Justice Department, not independently, and the Justice Department answers to the president, who's implicated in these emails.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Ms. Jayapal?